it's very much like you say, school operates very much like a prison system. There's uniforms, there's regimented meal times, and,
And always
they
the
set
bell.
little rows. Yep,
Always
there's a
the
bell.
bell.
Yep, bell
But
as
John
well.
Taylor Gatto goes nicely into this, his explanation of how this fragments and compartmentalizes the young mind. Think about registration taken twice a day. A name is read out, and you're supposed to say what?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm here. That is my name.
Yeah.
Well, when you start to look into the name issue and how it's been used through the creation of the birth certificate and the various chains of control that stem from that, and people not really understanding that you cannot be the name. A lot of this is about knowing yourself. Know thyself.
Mm.
Who are you? What are you? Whose are those thoughts that you've got in your mind? Are they thoughts that are genuinely from? Where are they from? Are they from outside you, or do you think they're from within? Or are they thoughts that are being programmed into you by your life experiences?
It's mostly the latter. I mean, one of the things that Jacques Fresco asked me when I first met him in person is, how much of you is you? It sent me away with loads and loads of thoughts in my head. I was like, got me thinking on so many different tangents, because we're not taught to learn who we are. We're taught to merely monotonously memorize information over and over and over, and then regurgitate it and be scored on how well we do that while we're sat in pretty little rows like drones. No wonder kids hate school, because it's forced. No wonder they, you ask an average school kid if they didn't have to school, would they? They'll be like, no, I'd do what I want to do. Of course, because what you want to do is fun.
Well, precisely. And previously, we didn't have compulsory education. If your parents could afford it, they may pay someone, or you may have a tutor. But if you were a teacher, say 200 years ago, in a class where you'd say got maybe 30 kids of different ages, because back then that was how it was. The local school would have kids of all ages. Well, at that time, you'd probably be teaching them the trivium, so the older ones can teach the younger ones, and by doing that, it's developing their powers of rhetoric. Explaining to youngsters how this stuff works is naturally going to improve your rhetorical skills, and of course, it all would stem from the trivium. So really, stories of grandparents who left school at 14. That's fine, man. As far as I'm concerned, the 7 ages of man, that means your first part of your child is over the age of 7, really. You've got better stuff to be getting on with. Who's to say? This relic of the industrial system whereby people are programmed into being at school 5 days a week. Who's to say a weekend should only be 2 days long? Why is weekend only 2 days long? Who decided that? Well, we've all not got better things to be doing with our time than going into these offices, these places of work, and often commuting some distance to do that work. And what is it ultimately? What is it you're doing? Are you contributing to the good of the world? Are you being the change that you wish to see? But of course, the powers that be don't want a critical thinking and aware population. It's not about that. But the Prussian education system is an interesting idea, because this developed during the Napoleonic Wars, when it was determined that the Germans, or the Prussian army at that time, the Prussian and Austrian armies, the soldiers were too critical of their commanders and were questioning things, and they decided, well, we don't want soldiers like that. How can we get around this? And then if you look into it, the Prussian education system was introduced, whereby we have what we have now, and this was 200 years ago nearly, a system whereby teachers have got security of tenure, provided they teach just what they're told to teach.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is still the case in Germany now, because this is where it developed. You've got children who are the children are taken away from the parents at a very early age and essentially become property of the state. If you look into the nature of what registration means, when you registrate something, what are you doing?
You're giving up title ownership.
Yeah. You see?
Oh yeah, it's one thing that I've noticed when researching into the Freeman stuff. I've started noticing these words that it just like filters through our conscious mind without snagging and going, oh, wait a minute, I've seen that one before. But when you actually look a bit deeper and start to question things more, things stop just running through untouched. They start snagging, and you go, wait a minute, I've seen you before. Where did you go? And it's like, what are you? Sort of thing. And right at this very moment, the word register, it never occurred to me when I was in school what that actually meant. And even though I've been telling people every now and then about the fact that, when you register your car or register your or you register anything, you're giving up total ownership. But then I'd forgotten all those years back in school. What's the name of what's otherwise known as roll call? It's known as a register.
Yeah, precisely. So you see how deep it goes.
Yeah, it's ubiquitous.
And one of the things it has taught me is really, because this miseducation that's been going on at so many different levels, it's taught me really I need to be more compassionate with people, because we've all, without exception, all of us have been miseducated. And that is certainly true of, you look at any strata of life, whether it's someone working as a barrister in the heart of the belly of the beast, the city of London, or whether it's someone working. You see, actually, the issue of freedom we will keep returning to that, because wherein lies freedom? How does one achieve it? Are we here to achieve it? What is the nature of this reality? What is it that we're here to do? Are we here to do anything? Are we here to do anything other than just actually engage in the process of self-realization, awakening consciousness, coming to the understanding of what you truly are? And there is that famous quote, isn't there? An unexamined life is one not worth living. I can't remember right now who said it, but questions like that they don't appeal to everybody.
No.
So I'm not really. But having said that, I am aware that everyone's going around and having their own completely unique experience. There are certain shared, common experiences, but nevertheless, ultimately, it's you and your heart and you and your thoughts, if they are your thoughts, and your perception of the world around you as it unfolds on a minute-by-minute basis. You become aware of that, and it leads you to the understanding that you are in fact the creator of it all, at least in one sense, because your reaction to what's going on around you is ultimately your reaction. Yeah, who's in charge of it? Whose are those thoughts? What is the language you're using when you're evaluating a situation you might be in? If you walk into a nightclub and you're looking around there, your reaction to it will be, well, for a start, you're going to be, your senses will be flooded with all kinds of information. There'll be flashing lights, there'll be the pounding music, there'll be certain songs that resonate with you. There'll be people in there to whom you feel attracted. There'll be people in there who, for whatever reason, repulse you. then you've got the whole light show going on, Now, some people might go in there and find that kind of oppressive. Other people might think, wow, this is it. It all depends on one's state of consciousnness. Even a bus journey, if you sat on a bus, you go on the buses, many people are pretty miserable to me, Adam. I don't know about you. But if for one reason or another, I've been using public transport quite a lot over the last few months. And, for whatever reason, I've always been the sort of guy who's actually, once I'm on and travelling in a vehicle, I'm kind of fascinated by what's unfolding around me. Other people, just watch when you're walking around the town, how many people walk with their heads down, often with the iPhones plugged, always with the finger attached to the iPhone or the headphones on. How many of them are actually really breathing properly and taking in their surroundings and looking at the architecture around them? How many of them are actually just walking with their heads down?
Yeah, I must admit, a lot of the time, when I'm travelling, I'm almost always listening to my, because I use my phone as an MP3 player as well. However, the vast majority of the time, I'm listening to a radio podcast or something. So it's
well, exactly. We can't always presume that people are listening to absolute shite while they're
exactly.
Walking.
Yeah, but the idea is that I think that what you're getting at here is that they're not in the actual moment that their physical body resides in. They're in another world that is coming through their headphones.
Yeah. Yeah, they're tuning into another reality. But what you said there, of course, the fact that we're communicating now using Skype, the technology that we have is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
But it's also, everything has different aspects to it. So the technology is a wonderful tool for liberation, but at the same time, as we know, it can be used as a method of controlling people.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's...
I don't know, how secure is Skype, for instance?
Well,
Is this, I mean, if you and I wanted to have a private, I know this is not a private conversation because we're sharing it with the others, but, how private is it, ultimately? Particularly if someone's engaging in connections with various movements, and, like the free man thing, or the groups are forming now of people with mortgages who are getting together and doing some excellent research into this, so suddenly for me, the whole thing's kind of taken on to another dimension. And, there are connections being established and people of spirit stepping forward and engaging in this. And I realise it is such a huge issue because you are taking on the banks ultimately and the whole apparatus that's controlled. Because, I mentioned earlier about the registration system, the birth certificate, and what's going on when the child is born. There's lots of information out there about this, but in terms of the creation of the legal fiction, of the legal name, the all capitalized name that is used by every public entity that's seeking to get something from you, usually money, okay, or perhaps in a more esoteric sense, if we see money as a representation of energy, then that energy is being directly stolen from you. People are paying 40 or 50% in tax on their earnings. That's a direct theft of their energy, if we look at it as money as energy. But then, of course, we need to ask the question, well, what is money? What is it that we think is money? And can we really ever have a system whereby our energy, and I'm not talking about necessarily the produce that you have from your life or the products, the production that you may be engaging in. I'm talking about, your essence, your being. Are we all are people being rewarded? Is money really a representation of the energy that they give out to the universe? Because it isn't, is it? We've only got to look at footballers who are paid 100 grand a week, and we've got to say, well, okay, he's kicking around a bag of air, he's quite skillful, he's able to put the ball where he wants it. If you or I were doing that for 5 hours a day, we'd fucking be expected to do that, But it's ultimately ridiculous. Then you start to look into, well, what is the nature? Why so many people are attracted to football? What is it what's really going on with the stadia? Because, there's certainly a theatrical aspect to it. It's public sports like that, but there's also a kind of religious aspect to it.
Yeah, the worship.
The worshipping. Yeah, the idolization of certain young athletes. Well, you could say, well, that's been around for a long time, and some have taken the view that sports are just legalized violence. It's just a form of legalized violence. Not quite as unsubtle as the gladiatorial aspect to it all, but nevertheless, there is still that quality.
Still a shade. Yeah.
What is it about about football? There's something tribal to it as well. And ultimately, what is it? You're just watching these guys going around in either a red shirt or a blue shirt, and it's predominantly red and blue, isn't it?
Yeah.
The shirts that they're playing. And if you take the shirts off, what would you have to watch without the shirts? What would you be watching? You see what I mean? So critical thinking is just, and I'm still a big fan of football. I've played a lot of sport in my life, and I've always enjoyed it because I've always, one of the things it can do, it's always better to engage in it rather than to watch it.
Yeah.
Again, that fits back with what I was saying at the start about walking the walk rather than just talking the talk.
Absolutely.
And, there are certain things in sport that it does teach you, and one of them is that those who are particularly good at it are those who are, I would say, able to be completely in the moment to the point where